Three, two, one. Hi, I'm Cathy Hobbs. I'm an interior designer and I own Cathy Hobbs Design Recipes in New York City. But before, I was a newscaster for 20 years, mostly in New York. And welcome to The Real, where I share some of my tricks of the trade relating to how you can harness the power of video. And I always have a special guest. And today, my special guest is Ginger Gadsden. She is absolutely one of my favorite people. I've known her for 30 years. She is an anchor in Orlando, Florida, and she is going to share some of her tricks of the trade today. She currently co-anchors the 5:30 and the 7 o'clock newscast at WKMG, the CBS affiliate in Orlando, Florida. Throughout her career, Ginger has worked in numerous TV markets, including Tampa, Indianapolis, Dallas, Washington, D.C., and Columbia, South Carolina, where we met. Ginger is an amazing storyteller, and her bubbly personality and energy really shows through with her on-air presence. And we're going to be talking a lot about that today, how to bring that out, how to bring out your inner self. Over her career, Ginger has worked as a news reporter, a weather anchor, a national correspondent, and a news anchor. Let's take a look at Ginger Gadsden, anchor woman. The one and only Ginger Gadsden, everyone. Gee.
Oh, Cathy, that was awesome. Thank you. I'm like, who is she talking about?
I know, right? That's all you. That's all you. And I have to bring this up. Not everyone, can have this long, illustrious career. Let me tell you guys, being on air for 30 years is an absolute monumental feat. It's a testament to who you are. I think, there are a lot of people who are good who aren't on TV anymore. You've been able to do it from who you are to your talent. And I think to your personality too, really.
Cathy, I've been extremely blessed throughout my career. That's the first thing I will say. And I've met the right people along the way who guided me along this path. And you know how important it is. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know and when you know them. And so to have been in this industry for such a long time and, thank God, still going at it and loving every moment of it is such a pleasure because it continues to change. And I hope that I've continued to change with it. And I feel like that's a part of the longevity in this business. You have to be an agent of change and recognize when you need to pivot. And so I've been able for all of these years, thank God, to pivot where I need to do so. So
you have to pivot. We're going to talk so much about pivoting today and motivation and being adaptive, because that's kind of what this is all about. I mean, it used to be that you had to have, be in the TV studio, have that big studio camera and microphone to have a video presence. Now, I mean, look, we're doing this beautiful show that's essentially, with a computer. I want to talk about the early days, everyone. So, Ginger and I met. I remember it. I remember it vividly. It was 1990. It was January 1990. And I had essentially been hired for my first full-time reporting job. I actually went to the University of Southern California, and then I worked in Bakersfield. And I met Ginger. And this is, she was an anchor at that point in Columbia, South Carolina. And Ginger was sitting at her desk when I walked in. And I looked over and she was smiling and she said, "Hi." And I said, "Hi." And she was the only one who was nice to me in the entire newsroom. And I was this new reporter hired to work nights. And I think if it wasn't for our friendship, I'm not so sure I could have gotten through those days in Columbia,
Oh,
South Carolina, because it was nervous enough to be on my first TV job, and then truthfully, I did walk into the friendliest newsroom in the world. I
yeah,
was the first new evening news reporter that they had. They were one man bands. I was given my own photographer and my own editor. I was coming from Los Angeles because I just graduated from USC. It was a rough crowd, but
yeah.
you made it wonderful, Ginger.
Oh, Kathy, that means the world to me because, everyone deserves a chance and people gave me a chance, right? So all I wanted to do was extend that invitation to you. And keep in mind, I was probably a year removed from college. So I had no idea what I was doing. Again, that's the part of me just being very lucky and knowing the right people, right? And so when you walk into that newsroom, you're like this breath of fresh air. And also, you look like me. So I was like, who is that? And you came in, you had your little, oh my God, Kathy, you have always been on point. And I remember you were wearing, I think the first time I saw you, it was this little green dress. And I'm like, that woman did not come to stay. Honest to God, that's the first thing I thought about you. I was like, she came through that entrance to leave. And so, you, and that's,
Every
and
day
so
I
I'm
punched in working for me.
and you would say that. And I loved that about you. And it was just so, and it was an inspiration to me, even though I was the one who was already working there, right? And established. And you come through this door and I'm like, let me just grab onto her coattails. Because honest to God, I knew from the moment I met you, I'm like, she is going places. And I feel like you stayed there for probably, and I'm being generous, 7 months.
It was 7 months. It was 7.5 months. But it was always looking for, it was always planning. And
Mhm.
that was the plan, kind of like, how can I plan and plant a foundation for which to grow? I really believe in seed planting and
Mhm.
foundation work. You gotta earn the next move. And so
Yeah.
for me, being in Columbia, South Carolina was earning that
Yes.
experience that I needed. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
I want to talk about some of your early days. We have a video that we're going to go to in just a second, kind of looking back at some of your early days. But what was interesting to me, just looking back when I was reviewing your bio, was how you went from being a newscaster in Columbia, South Carolina, to doing weather as your next move. I mean, to me, leaps had to have been taken because not everyone can go from being a newscaster to weather and sports. To me, that's almost a different skill set.
Well, it is a different skill set, but I wish I had done weather before I did news because if you can stand in front of a blank wall, the green screen, and point to nothing and talk about it for 3 minutes when the weather is pretty, you can do anything. And so I feel like it really prepared me to tap dance during these live shots when things would go wrong, or just kind of buy time until somebody comes over to you for an interview. So if you can talk about the weather when it's nice, and in Columbia, South Carolina, it's hot, humid, hazy, and that is 364 days of the year, and you get rain for one day, so you get to talk about that. And I feel like that really was a great foundation, and it laid the foundation for me to be able, I can do in television, I feel, any job you throw at me now. And I think weather was really the genesis of all of that. And it builds your confidence because you have to know stuff. You can't just talk to hear yourself talking, right? You have to learn things. And when you learn things and you remember it, now you have that knowledge and no one can take that from you, right? You have command of something. So when someone asks you about it, you can just spit it out because guess what? You know it because it's in here. It's not on a teleprompter. You have to know it. And that has really saved me many, many times in areas where I'm not doing weather. And I haven't done weather in 2 decades.
Well, you were on, you you said that you were just a couple of years from college when you were really given your first on-air job. I was actually given my first on-air job while I was a senior at USC, the
Mhm.
University of Southern California. I mean, essentially someone hired me to work weekends. I want to talk about the fact that you had no experience when you were placed on air in Columbia, South Carolina. Were you an intern first? And then did you say, I want to be on air? How did that even come about?
Yeah. I too. I was working while I was in college. I was a weather intern at WIS, which was the NBC station in that market, and my advisor at school said, "You should be on television." He was my theater professor. And that's the reason I didn't major in journalism. He said, "You should major in English and theater because that will always serve you well." He says, "They crank out journalism students like a dime a dozen." He said, "You have to set yourself apart." And no slam on that, but he says, "You have to stand out. You have to set yourself apart." So he got me an internship at WIS when I wasn't supposed to have because I wasn't in the J school. He says, "I trust that you will work your way into the news department." And it took me a hot minute to do it because I started interning. I interned in weather and I would do the midday maps for Joe Pinner, Mr. Knows It. I think he's still there. And so after my internship was over, Kathy, I literally would not leave the station. I would, and when I mean over, I don't mean for that day. I mean when the semester was over, I kept coming back and I kept doing the work. And who's going to turn down free work, right? Because I was hungry and I was eager. So I'm a junior in college, then I'm a senior in college, and I'm no longer an intern. I think it's probably illegal now. I'm working there for nothing but the experience of doing it. I would come in on weekends. I would go out with the reporter and the photographer, and I would get their reel, and they would help me shoot stand-ups out in the field. It would never make air, but I got that experience from them. And because they saw me all the time, they said, "This girl wants something. She is not going away." I didn't party in school, and I don't regret it. I was always at the TV station trying to learn because I had no idea as a kid a career like this for me could even exist. I thought I was going to be a school teacher, and no, and God knows I love school teachers, but I could never ever be one. And so it takes a special kind. But I literally would not leave the news station. And by the time I was a senior, I had a little weekend job at WIS doing the little entertainment segment for the weekend show. You know, if there was an okra strut or a grits cook off, I was your girl. And that to me was a big
That and
deal.
that's a big deal, folks, in Columbia, South Carolina, the okra strut. You know, it's interesting because I have a similar story about not majoring in journalism. I actually was majoring in marketing and finance. I was in the business school at the University of Southern California, and I was doing business internships. And then I started to think what I would really want to do for a career. I said, being a TV newscaster looks kind of interesting. And I ended up enrolling in the journalism school at USC. And the second day of the class, it was Reporter 101, we were doing obits. And I said, oh my God, this is so boring. You know, we're sitting there doing obits. And the teacher said, this is going to be the first job you'll ever get in journalism, in the basement of some newspaper doing obits. So I kept
Wow.
doing it. By the end of the week, he pulls me out in the hallway. He says, look, you're never going to make it in journalism. I've been in journalism for 20 years. I remember his name. I won't, I don't even know if he's still living, but I remember his name. And
Of
he said, you'll
course.
never make it in journalism. You should drop out. And I actually did. And I said, well, maybe he's right. And then Cathy, being Cathy, picked myself up and I said, we're not going to go down like this. And I ended up applying for a job writing for the school newspaper, which they only gave to journalism students. But
Mhm.
the class system hadn't shown me dropping out of the journalism department. It showed me as an active student. So they gave it to me.
That was your grace
And
right
I
there.
became like a columnist for the school newspaper. And then they had a job fair at USC that was held by the Hispanic Journalism Association. And it was supposed to be for Hispanic journalists. I said, well, there's going to be news directors there. Maybe I'll show up. And I did. And there was a long, 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 long long line for KABC and KNBC and on these big stations. And there was a guy sitting by himself who worked for KGET in Bakersfield, California. And I went and I talked to him, the guy who nobody wanted to talk to.
Mhm.
And he ended up giving me a job working weekends when I was still in college, and it ended up being that springboard. And so I bring that up because I get people who say to me, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'd love to be that person who is on CNBC. I'd love to be that political commentator. I'd love to be that expert who they call for local news. I'd love to be able to use television to brand myself and my business. And, a lot of people say, well, where do I start? And we're talking as two people who never took a journalism class, and we had a career in television. So for those people who are looking to brand themselves through television or through video, whether you're a real estate agent, an entrepreneur, an expert, let's say in a profession such as a doctor or a lawyer, what advice would you say that they should have to really transition from being a novice to more of a pro?
You know what, Kathy? Honestly, in my experience and everything, it's one of those things you can't teach someone, you just have to do it. For example, if you already have experience, say you are a financial person, but you want to be the expert in that particular community, I honest to goodness would start by reaching out to a TV station, especially if there is a story that is relevant right now and it deals in your area, and make a pitch for yourself as to why this is something that needs to be discussed and I'm your person. Now, granted, the first time you may not be that smooth on air, but it's the knowledge, the information that you own that no one else can emulate. And you can't teach someone what you've already gone to school for 8, 10, 12 years to learn. If you have that financial information, I go with finances because J school people always say they're bad with math. And so we love people who can talk about numbers all day and make it make sense. And you have to have a way of doing it in bite-sized pieces. But if you are that person and you have that experience, you cannot be afraid to just put yourself out there and don't be afraid to fail. Know that the first time it's not going to be the most polished product you've ever put out there, but you get better over time and you build a relationship with this one station, and then maybe someone else will see you, and then the next person will see you. And today you have the added benefit of doing things online. Make a video of yourself talking about something that is relevant and put it out there. You could put it on Twitter, you could put it on YouTube, you can put it out anywhere in the ether, and someone will see it. And I feel like now people have the advantage of starting that way where we didn't have that. Like Facebook didn't exist, Twitter didn't exist. Lord knows all of the stuff that we're doing right now did not exist. And it's just a matter of doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And Kathy, you know what I'm talking about, because when you first started in this business, you go and you look at your resume reel, and then you look at all the stories you've done. And at the time you think, oh, I am good.
I got it going on.
Thank you. And 6 months later, you could look at those same stories and say, what was I thinking? But that's a sign of growth, that you've gotten better, that even just 6 months ago, you would never do what you just saw on that reel. So each time it's like a muscle. It just gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Well, I want to talk about evolving. And we're going to go to a video right now of some of your looks throughout the year, and how you've evolved, essentially, even in your branding and your look. So let's take a look. I think that part of the trick is understanding your best self and your best look. I realized for me that when I had hair that was at my shoulders, and I think that there are certain styles that I could wear, that it framed my face differently. than a shorter bob. I think you look better with longer hair. And, how did you even get there? How did you even evolve your look? So many people are like, and for me, Ginger, this is still a work in progress. I really want to elevate my look. I think I've had the same hairstyle for like at least 10 years now. But how did you get to the point where you said, let me try something else?
Oh, I didn't get to that point on my own. Consultants got to that point for me. So, it's very fortunate and unfortunate. Sometimes you can encounter these consultants, but they've been, a godsend to me. And there's one of the looks where I had the little stringy bangs there. That was before a consultant got a hold of me, as you can tell. And that look was in Indianapolis, because that was my first job outside of my college market in Columbia, South Carolina. So I went to Indianapolis, which at the time I didn't realize that was a substantial jump. I'm like, oh, okay, someone likes my work and they want to hire me, so I'm going to go. But they had a consultant at that station, and they knew that my look had to change. I had the little Q-tip hair, which did not. I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm not petite, and I have a giant head, so I have to have. I have to have hair on it, or I'll look like a Q-tip. So a consultant got a hold of me, and she really worked with me. And I'm telling you, but the sad part is you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt, because that same consultant who really brought me out of my shell and told me about my hair and makeup also said I needed to get my teeth fixed, and I also needed a boob job. Now, okay, that couldn't happen today, right? Especially the boob job part, because that's a fireable offense for any consultant. But I said to her, I had the wherewithal to know, even though I was young in my early 20s, I'm like, I'm not going to alter my body, but I will let you straighten my teeth. And so I had braces on air in Indianapolis, and it took almost 3 years to straighten it out, because I always tell people my mouth, I had a bunch of teeth and it was like a rake up in there. And I told them, I said, I'm not going to, I'm just being honest. You want me to be honest, right? So it was terrible. And so, but I said, I won't alter my body, but I can do is I can get my suits and my clothes altered. And, but I need more money for that. And that taught me you can get whatever you ask for, basically, if it's within reason. They asked me to change something about me, which was my appearance, and I asked them to pay for it. And look at my teeth now. I always get compliments on my teeth.
Beautiful.
But thank God they paid for my braces. They paid for my wardrobe to be altered to fit to me, because I'm not, as they say in the industry, and I hope I can say this, boobalicious. I'm not. And that's just never who I'm going to be. But if you get things that are fitted, and I learned about a good fit in Indianapolis, and doing that is not cheap. So, they paid for it, which was great. But you have to be open to constructive criticism. And that's where I learned to get a thick skin, because when people tell you your teeth are jacked and you're flat chested, that's a lot to take. That's a lot to take. But
I was told similar advice. It's interesting because it is a visual medium, and there are a lot of people who may say, I can't do this, and oh well, I'll never be asked to be on this show or that show. I'll never be the expert. I'll never be get that kind of level of fame because I'm not as good looking as they are. People are looking for different looks, and it's not necessarily the Clark Kent and Barbie look. People are looking for diversity. They're looking for people who are interesting. They're looking for people who are edgy. They're looking for people who are intelligent with something great to say. If you look these days on all of the cable news programs and even some of the national news programs, it's not necessarily, again, that Clark Kent and Barbie look. It's people who are smart. It's people with experience. And it's interesting, G, because I had a similar experience. I was at a job fair, and an executive from one of the networks, and they were one of the talent executives, and they stopped my tape and they said, we think that you're great. You're solid. You're a solid storyteller. You're a solid live shot reporter. My only advice to you is find a good dentist. That was literally the quote. Find a good dentist. And at that point, I had braces. as a child. And what my kind of vice, and at this point, I was already a reporter in Washington, D.C. So I had made it kind of far here.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like, it wasn't like I was, just
We're in
starting
Bakersfield.
out.
Yeah.
And my problem was that the two front teeth were large, just the way God made me, and the two side ones were small, and it made the front two look like chiclets. I look like, growing up, my people called me Bucky Beaver, all kind of mean names. But
Girl.
I went to a cosmetic dentist, and he said, we can change that. And I said, oh. And what they did was they filed down my front two teeth and they veneered the two on either side. And my teeth are veneered to this day. And this is more than 20 years later. I have zero cavities. I'm someone who was blessed with good teeth, but I have veneers on either side of my front two teeth for cosmetic reasons. And so I think that's you say have thick skin. Be willing to say maybe I could use a little bit of an improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. You cannot be afraid to change. Don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. Like I knew getting like breast enhancement, that was never gonna be me, right? But I knew that I had some issues going on. My bottom teeth were sideways. And I had this one special one that was like a bike kickstand that went out to the side. And so, and so it was like, but I still had a great smile, but it could have been improved upon. And coming from a family of 15, guess how many of us got braces? None.
We're going to talk about your family just a second, because I think that's an inspiration in and of itself. I want to go back really quickly to the consultants, because I think that a lot of people are, okay, well, what is that? What does that mean? And in television, there are companies that come in and they watch newscasts and they give their thoughts on appearance and even the general content of a newscast. But I want to talk about even a professional stylist that maybe has been involved in your arsenal. Maybe it's someone who maybe dressed you. Maybe it's a makeup artist. I would always get advice from the makeup artist who would do my makeup. And I would actually pay for them separately to give me a makeup lesson, especially when I loved the way they did my face, because not everyone can bring out your best features. For me, I have very large eyes, and I really loved when someone made them a little bit smokier and not as big. But let's talk about the consultant part of it. You had mentioned your teeth. And I also want to go back to your hair. Did they at one point say to you, you should have longer hair? Because there was a time in television when long hair was not in. They would call it the anchor bob, where if you had long hair, it was actually not looked upon favorably. That's why they everyone was cutting their hair. I'm curious about that.
Oh, yeah. A consultant told me, and you could tell the year that it happened too, because one year I had this short little anchor bob that, I mean, honestly, identical. If you find people who were anchors in the 90s, we had the shoulder pads and we had the anchor bob, and then we wore some pearls. That was the look, and you were taken very seriously. But I had a consultant tell me, Ginger, you need to look like, and she said New York. She said, you need to look like New York. And I'm like, but I'm not going to New York. She's like, it doesn't matter. You still need to look like New York, because that was kind of the benchmark for everyone, as you know. So when you end up in that market, you really made it, which you did, because you've been there, done that. But it was a process of just putting extensions in my hair at the time. And it changed the game, Cathy. Not only did it look phenomenal, but I love the way it looked. When sometimes people suggest things to you and you're like, oh, this is not me. I was like, this is me. Why did I not know this before? And I'm like, thank God for extensions. And so that consultant really upped my game. And I noticed that, and this seems crazy, but your confidence on air, when you are confident with how you look and feel, your performance changes. And for me, once all of that started to get put together, because I'm a shy person, I know people don't believe that, but I'm an introvert by nature. But once you get the whole look together and you look really polished, which I think I look polished, more polished with the longer hair, I just felt different when I got on the desk. or when I'd be out in the field anchoring or doing something. I don't know what it is. I mean, I am not my hair, but when you put on a nice dress or an outfit and you're feeling yourself and you feel good, you walk differently. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It
So,
does. It does. And I feel that myself. I remember I was doing a shoot one time and I was wearing slippers. And the makeup artist, who had been my makeup artist for years, she said, "Kathy, put on the heels." And I said,
mhm,
"I want to be comfortable." She said, "You will command the camera differently once you put on the heels." And she was right, because at that point there was a different confidence. And even today I could be sitting here in my pajamas, but I'm not. I'm in a dress. I'm in a full dress. I took the time to steam, my outfit. I took time to pick out the perfect jewelry. This is the platform now. This is the online platform. This is you when you're doing a video, everybody at home. It is
mhm,
doing the makeup. It is doing the outfit. It is picking out the right colors. It is all those confidence on camera builders that
yes,
will give you that increased sense of confidence once you press live or once you press
yes.
start.
Go time. It's go time. And you feel good about yourself. And I don't want people to confuse that with me hating on my short hair because I didn't, that I loved it. But when you see yourself in a different way and it's like, wow, that looks really nice. And you just embrace it. We all have different things that work for us. I could never get away right now. And if I think about it, if I went back to a short bob, I could never get away with that. And I don't know but I didn't know any better at the time. So that consultant was very helpful. And also, we would have, back in the day, you'd have the makeup artist in some of the markets. I had one when I moved to Dallas, and they do things with your face that you never even thought was possible. It's like, who is that girl? I still looked like me, but it was a better version
That's
of me.
right. And that's what, to me, makeup should do. It should enhance. You shouldn't look like a different
Yeah,
person. It should just
yeah.
enhance
Hmm.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people have also looked to reality TV as a way to potentially brand themselves. For me, that was it worked for me. Transitioning from TV news to being on Design Star. I was cast on season 6,
Mhm.
and then parlaying that into more hosting and design. But to me, what is also part of your secret sauce is just being really authentic to who you are. A lot of people who live in Orlando would know this. I know this about you. You're one of 15 children. And that's really part of your story, too, that you even share with audiences. And so the station that you work at in Orlando has actually incorporated that in some of the station promos. So let's take a look at one of them.
I grew up with 14 brothers and sisters. My parents worked hard and were married for 57 years. We learned early to take care of ourselves and each other. And being part of a community was key. Working hard, helping our neighbors is ingrained in me. So I want you to know you have someone in your corner. Someone who will work hard for you and stand up for you. That's what getting results is all about. I'm Ginger Gadsden, News 6, Getting Results.
Ginger,
Mhm.
why share that about yourself? I mean, that says something about you.
Every time, I'm an emotional person. So every time I see my parents,
Aw.
I start to feel it because I miss them and I am nothing without them and everything because of them. And if you can raise 15 kids and love them all equally, and oh gosh, and not make them, feel like they're a mistake or oh God, I'm so sorry I had these 15 kids or I don't know what to do. But I was raised by two people who did everything to make sure we had what we needed to have, right? We were not rich, but we were not hungry. We weren't homeless. We had just the bare necessities. But the thing we had the most in our house was love and discipline. And those things really got us through everything, Kathy. And I just think about my parents right now. And it's like, They were just such good people. My dad was the hardest working man I know. So for me, on days where I'm not feeling like coming in and like, it's like, if you read out loud, girl, you need to stop. My dad had to do like 4 jobs, backbreaking jobs to
Yeah.
support all of us. You know what I mean? So I take that to heart. And he had pride in whatever he did. So I take a lot of professional pride in what I do, knowing that he built the foundation for me to do what I'm doing now. And this is a man who had a 6th grade education. Neither one of my parents even finished high school. So but they knew how important it was for me to go to school, to better myself, to get an education, because every parent wants their child to have it easier than they had, right? That's what everyone wants. You want your kids to have it better.
And when you share with audiences those types of personal experiences, I think that not only are you relatable, but you are inspiring. People say, well, wow, Ginger, she didn't have a silver spoon in her mouth, or she had 14 siblings. I'll share a personal story because I think it is interesting. Because of our background. So Ginger and I are very close friends, and we've been on lots and lots of vacations together. And a lot of times it was me, Ginger, and another friend. And Ginger would always pay extra to have a private room. And she said, I shared a room my entire life. I don't want to do it anymore. And and this is true. These are true stories.
I sometimes forget about that because I'm married now, so I don't have the option of having a private room.
You're right. When you're married, well, you can have a private room, but that may be a different. But I think that everything about who we are and what we share and how we bring that to people who follow us and are inspired by us. And if you're a business owner, that brand personality, I think that I can judge people almost immediately and say, I want to do business with that person. I want to partner with that person. I want that person to be part of even my team. There are lots and lots of people who have kind of come through the door with my company. And I say to all of them who are still there, you're still here because you work and because you fit into the fiber of the company culture. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between mentoring, inspiring, and being motivational, because I think that one of the things that you have done very successfully is you have brought up other people. And you talked earlier about how people were your mentors and how they helped you. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you've also inspired a whole, community of aspiring journalists. I know that I helped people because they helped me. And I have had people who have come up to me and say, Cathy, you let me interview you for your school newspaper. You took my phone call when I was needing to interview a journalist for my class project, people who I don't even remember. But I do remember that the whole time that I was a reporter, and even now, I never said no. I never said no to an invitation to speak at a church. I never said no to an invitation to speak at a career day. I never said no to speak at a women's empowerment day. I never said no unless I physically couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so important because sometimes we forget. You get to a certain place and you're like, well, I have mine, so good luck. Bye. My thing goes back to, again, Columbia, South Carolina, where I interned at WIS. And there used to be an evening show locally produced called PM Magazine. I'm really dating myself now. And one of the photographers on that show, and I don't know if he's still alive or not, but I remember his name. His name is Tony Kenyon. And he was a photographer, and he was big time because he wasn't a news photographer. He got to go out and shoot long format magazine style stories, right? And so I'm automatically just attracted to that instantly because I would see how he would go out and shoot these stories and put it together, and then you see it on TV and it's like, holy cow, you did that. And he would allow me to sit with him when he edited. I went out on some shoots with them. He put together a reel for me. And you think you're like, what does this guy want? What does this guy want? He told me one day, we're sitting in an edit booth. He says, Ginger, all I want you to do is remember to help someone else. And that is powerful because it really doesn't cost you anything except time. But years ago, I'm still in college, and this guy says, all I want you to do is help someone else. And that really stuck with me because he helped me. So anytime someone would call me, Cathy, I will talk to a group of 5 people. I don't care. I don't care if you're the only one in the room. If you invited me, I was going to show up and I was going to give you my best. I didn't look at a small crowd as like and being dismissive about it. It's like you took the time to invite me, that I'm going to give you exactly what you asked me to do, and I'm going to do my very best. And I feel like that has served me well in the community because people talk and your reputation is all you have. So if you get there and there are 5 people there and you're mad about the 5 people and you don't do your best and you may have somewhat of an attitude, well, guess what they're going to remember? You know, and that's not fair to them. It really isn't. So you always have to remember it is important. People are watching you, they're listening to you. Because I can tell you I'm nice all day, and I am. I feel like I'm a really nice person, but it's by your actions that people will judge you, and that's what they remember. And believe it or not, those 5 people in a small community, the word spreads like wildfire. People see you, and all of a sudden you're in Columbia, you're in the grocery store, and it's like they spotted Justin Bieber. And it's
I think that one of the things that you touched upon as being a stand-up person. I'm a business owner now. I own a home staging and interior design company, and there are people who have worked with me, who haven't worked with me, but who will recommend me over and over again because my reputation is of being honest, trustworthy. I meet deadlines. I do a beautiful job, and I'm not a bad person.
Mhm.
You want to. I have had relationships for so many years with so many people. I always say being friends with me is like owning a timeshare. You can get in, but you can't get out. You cannot get out. So I want to now go to a video that your station did on. I think it's really a motivational video with you in the community.
Glad you guys are here. I love the spirit of the community. It really is a powerful movement when you feel it. And make sure that you individually are leaders in your community because that's how it starts and that's how it grows. Any chance I get to be of service, to mentor the younger generation is special to me. You have the ability to change and make where you live a better place. Getting results is a movement, and we want you all to be a part of it. I'm so excited for you. Oh my God.
I know that you go out in the community and you're getting hugs and high fives. And I want to talk real quick about a charitable component because there are a lot of people who give to their communities, whether it's publicly or privately. And they are also able to use that as an additional outreach, even as it relates to their own brand building. Have you seen that happen? That charitable component kind of rub off in other areas?
Oh gosh, I mean, how could it not? I feel like if you're doing some sort of work that involves helping other people, and we do it, people reach out to us all the time, and their charitable outreaches that I didn't even know about until somebody would call and say, "Hey, would you come and speak to this group?" And you speak to a group, and then you realize, like, wow, this is really cool. I want to know more about it. And so, an example for me is when I worked in Tampa. I did something called Wednesday's Child, where you talk about foster kids. And you cannot do a story on a child who needs a home every single week and not be impacted by that story. And especially coming from where I came from, coming from a family of 15 kids, having both parents present, and then recognizing that, wow, that's a gift. That's not a given. That these kids, through no fault of their own, don't have a stable home life. So then I started just taking an interest in what it takes to get foster kids on their feet. And then the ones who really touch you are the ones who are never adopted, who age out at 18. Well, they need a place to live. They need cars. They need a start in life. And so you reach out and you work in those different arenas that touch your heart. It has to mean something to you, and it means a lot to me to see these kids out in the world and doing better. Like, for example, when I learned that foster kids, they are taken from homes in the middle of the night sometimes, and so no one packs a bag for them. Their things are taken in garbage bags. I'm like, what does this say about that child? You are no better than what we're putting your things in, a garbage bag. So I worked with a community, an outreach group that purchased backpacks for these kids to have. So you get them shampoos, you get them toiletries and things to put in the backpack. That's something that's theirs that they can have instead of a garbage bag. And it was always like the hefty bags because they could stuff as much as they could into it. And there are other organizations that I work with that touch me in that way, but it has to mean something to you. And I feel like if I were to leave television, that's the kind of work I would do because it still makes a difference in the community.
When I was a reporter, I really wasn't able to touch the community in the same way that I can now as an entrepreneur. I was able to, of course, go into communities, tell someone's story, be really true to that story. But as an entrepreneur, I can give back in a different way. And I do think that's important. One of the things that we really want to hopefully be able to do, we're currently building our headquarters, is be able to take furniture that we can no longer use for staging and donate it to foster care families or people who are transitioning from homelessness, let's say, to permanent shelters. In the last section that we have, I want to first start by showing some of your work throughout the years, the so-called sizzle reel. And then on the back side of it, we're going to give some more tips for people who are looking to brand themselves using video.
Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome back to the morning show. I'm Ginger Gadsden.
And I'm Joe Gum. A good morning as well. My wife said, wear a subtle tie, something laid back on your first day. So
you didn't listen to her.
Well, no, this is the one she picked out. You should see the other
nice.
ones. Yeah, they're pretty crazy.
Did she tell you to wear subtle socks as well?
She didn't.
Okay.
In fact, she bought those for me.
Because you didn't.
Yeah.
Just put this dress on his feet. Those are his socks.
Yeah, some days I don't wear socks.
I know.
Because the weather.
Okay, yes.
It's nice here.
It is nice. We're getting to know Joe Gum this morning, so go to our Facebook page, and he's going to answer any and all of your questions. Ask him whatever you want, people. Trust me, he'll tell you. All right, meteorologist Bobby Deskins joins us now with a look at our Thursday forecast. Look at that. Let me see your socks,
nice,
Bob.
Just in case you're wondering, I got socks on.
Those are gorgeous.
Well, one person is in jail, and authorities say more arrests could be on the way in a foiled plot to blow up the Federal Reserve building in New York. Authorities say a man from Bangladesh was arrested in a sting operation yesterday morning. The FBI claims they provided that man with a fake bomb, watched as he parked a van filled with the fake explosives in the financial district, helped him record a tape claiming responsibility for the bomb, and recorded him as he attempted to remotely detonate that bomb. Lance Armstrong is out of work this morning. The cycling champ resigned from the chair of his charitable foundation and was then fired from 5 separate sponsorship deals, including Nike. The events come on the heels of a release from the U.S. anti-doping agency, which details allegations of doping from Armstrong and his teammates during his run of 7 Tour de France titles. Olympic all-around champion and Golden Girl Gabby Douglas has another reason to celebrate this morning. She just won Sportswoman of the Year. The gymnast won the award last night, beating out other top athletes like Lindsey Vonn, Serena Williams, and Missy Franklin. Douglas won the all-around gold at the London Olympics and helped the U.S. women to the title, the team title, their first since 1996.
So
Well,
anyway, so that's it. So I'm excited to be here in Tampa, St. Pete.
Okay, you can't just skim over the fact that you've written 3 books, and one of them's about giving birth. Because what would you, Joe Gum, a man, know about having a baby?
Well, I was told one time by my friend, she's like, you don't have a uterus. So how do you know all this?
Well.
So I said, you're right, I don't. But
and welcome.
Yeah, you go through all the what is it called? The growing pains, I guess,
yes.
Of your wife. And anyway, so I read a book that was 600 pages. I didn't read it. I read the beginning of it, and I said, I got to write a book.
Yeah.
I can do better.
One that you can read.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
That all
Okay.
men can read.
Well, we're going to get to know you a little bit better as the weeks progress, and we hope you'll stick around. Please, Lord, do. We're so happy you're here. We're going to check in now with meteorologist Bobby Deskins. He's on the Jerry Ohm Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram weather deck. Bobby, anything you want to know about Joe?
I have no uterus either, Joe. High five, buddy.
Perfect.
The Iceman goes viral. Have you seen this?
Check this out. This was Bobby last night. It's a guy in Germany. He gets ready to do a stunt. We have to do it one time in slow motion, don't we? It's involving jumping into a frozen pool. He's thinking about it right here. He's like, I don't know. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Then he does the hook 'em horns, and he's thinking he's going to break through the ice. And
he's worried about how cold it's going to be.
And the guy's in shape. You know, maybe he's like, hey, I'm a big guy. I'm going to break right through the ice.
Okay, let's let him do it again. He's proud of himself. He's making the muscle. There he goes.
Yeah.
And man, that is some seriously frozen water.
Oh.
He didn't think it was, though. It was thicker than. Okay. Right now. Let's come back to.
You gotta love that.
I can't look at him anymore.
What do you even say about this?
If you've fallen on ice before, you know how hard that hurts.
Yeah.
Right.
How bad that hurts.
And 4 feet under.
Somebody get him some Advil.
Oh my gosh! And you know why that guy did that? Because he doesn't have a uterus.
That's right. He
had a uterus.
He wanted one. He wants one, so that's a perfect way to get one.
How do you say, hey, y'all, watch this in German?
I don't know what that guy did. We'll be right back.
So what I noticed when we watched those morning show clips, was that Orlando or was that Tampa?
It's Tampa.
Is humor. And so when I was coming up in journalism, one of the sayings that someone told me was make them laugh, make them cry, but make them feel something. And let's talk about some tips in this last segment that we have as to how you can make your video stand out, how you can make someone want to watch your video. A lot of people who watch this webinar series are real estate agents. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. They don't want to do dry videos, but they don't want to do something that may be silly. You don't want to jump on the ice.
Yeah.
You don't want people laughing at you in that way. So, how can you make a video that's really interesting and that will make people want to watch?
Yeah, Kathy, I find that you have to make yourself stand out, right? And the first thing, because it's video, then you have to pop off the screen. So you physically have to have a presence. And not everyone is blessed with that, believe it or not. And, it took me a long time to realize that, because you feel like TV is the great equalizer and you get in front of a camera, but you can put you next to someone and they could be saying the same thing. It's how they say it and what they're trying to let you know as they're saying it. Because I can be telling you something about myself, but my expressions are relaying another layer of what I'm saying. So you can't be afraid to use your tools. And one of the tools we all have is a face, right? Nobody likes just a non-expressive, stiff face. And I feel like you always will pick out the interesting face in the crowd. So if someone's saying something, it's how they're saying it. It's how they're relaying it to the audience or whoever they're talking to, right? So that, to me, just your presence and your command of the subject or what you're talking about is one way or a few ways to stand out. But you just have to exude confidence. And sometimes you have to continue to just build yourself up until you feel confident if you're not exactly feeling it that particular day or at that moment because you don't have experience yet. But the more you do it, the more you start to feel like, okay, I have this. And honestly, somebody saying nothing but making it look interesting is better than someone who's saying something interesting, but they're just as stiff as a board, and it's all about your presence, and you have to bring something to it. You have to be who you are, because I feel like the camera does not lie. It's a great truth teller. People will see that. You have to bring your authentic self to whatever you're doing. And I feel like that sets you apart from other people. You don't have to be a jokester, but if your go-to is humor, and that's always I'm self-deprecating, And it's, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'll say something about myself before I say something bad about you, right? So people love that. They love that they can feel like, oh, well, she doesn't think she's perfect. Because I have found no one, especially when I did mornings, people don't want to turn on the TV and see someone who is plastic and perfect. They want someone who's real and relatable. And you can be relatable just by being who you are, if that's who you are. And sometimes I get frustrated with myself because I didn't look at a script ahead of time, which would happen in morning news if there's something going on really quickly, and it wouldn't be a clean read. And what I've realized over the years is people don't care if you're not a clean reader, right? They want someone they can relate to. They see you, and we all have rough days. And I would just say, it's like, okay, I am not feeling it this morning. I didn't get sleep last night. I didn't have coffee, and this was just handed to me, and whatever. They want you to be honest with them and tell them the truth. They don't want to think that you went to bed, woke up, fully made up, and you're just this perfect specimen, because that's not natural and that's not real. People
What about
want,
social media, though? What are your thoughts about it? Because there is, I think that there should be still substantive information that people
yeah,
get from it. And you see people are like, oh, I don't care. I'll just do it without makeup. I think some of that's fine. But I think that it's such a powerful tool that you have available. I personally like to still have that brand message still properly represented. I personally don't feel comfortable overexposing myself. I still want it to be authentic, but I needed to also have a certain level of professionalism for me to feel comfortable about it.
yeah, that works for you. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not going to work for everyone. For me, I have to embrace the imperfections. And that is, and that is what makes me real and relatable to people, right? Because they walk around, they think because you're on TV anyway, that your life is just charmed. And they have no idea how you got to this particular level and all the little jobs you had to do along the way and all the negativity and the doubt you encountered. I mean, somebody told you to get out of the business, and look at you. And so it's like, thank
Well,
God.
that's what was the motivation. Ginger, I have one last question for you. For years and years and years, you did not have an agent.
Yeah.
And these days, a lot of people are saying, I do want to be a commentator. I do want to be a political contributor. I do want to be an analyst. I do want to be a doctor who is giving advice and has a segment on a local newscast.
Yes.
Would you recommend that someone get an agent or a manager in order to be able to essentially extend their brand to television?
That's a tricky one for me, because in my entire life, I've only had one agent, and that was to come to Orlando, of all places, right? And it turns out that, it was a friend who actually told me about this job. But if I were looking for something very specific, and if you're, say, in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, one of those giant markets, and even some of the mid-sized markets in the Midwest, and you have a particular thing that you want to get after, I feel like an agent can serve you well. But you have to be careful about the kind of contract you sign with that person. Do you know what I mean? You just have to make sure that it's not a lifelong deal, and that maybe, okay, you got me this deal, and that's it. I can handle it from here. I just need your help getting me in the door. And sometimes that's the perfect way to use an agent. They introduce you to people and they get you that first job, and it's up to you to do the rest of it. Because what I thought, my doubt about agents for all those years that I did mornings, is that unless they are getting up at 2 a.m. with me and going to work with me, then what am I paying them for? Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes you are paying them for that open door, that opportunity. Ginger, I could talk to you forever and ever and ever, but we're going to have to end it here. Ginger Gadsden, everyone, TV news anchor in Orlando, Florida, and one of my closest friends, a tremendous talent. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm interior designer Cathy Hobbs, owner of Cathy Hobbs Design Recipes, based in New York City, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Jean.
Cathy. Bye.